Hello, I'm Bob Henderson, broadcasting from Raleigh, North Carolina, Director of Training. We're so glad that you're here today. We have a great topic for you, one that we don't do very often, but it's been a lot of fun preparing. But others are with me also. So Ben, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Ben Coyle. I'm one of the members of the training team. Thank you for coming today. Bob is going to be talking about concepts of hazardous lighting, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the product aspect of things. We also have another person in the training department, Colleen.
Hi everyone, Colleen McLaughlin. Yes, I want to jump right in and say congratulations to Pat Halpin out of Billings, Montana. He was our winner for the October giveaway. We are continuing our $100 gift card giveaway for November. So there's only 3 webinars this month, today being the first one. Today's code word is HARSH, H-A-R-S-H. Make sure you remember that so that when you get our follow-up email in the survey, fill out that survey, put in the code word, that will count as 1 entry. So make sure you do that. And also I will be handling Q&A today. So if anyone has any questions, please type it into the question box and we'll address that at the end of the presentation.
So those of you who haven't attended before, we actually have a 3rd or 4th person here who is not part of the training department. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Scott Teague. I'm the Western Regional Sales Manager for RAB, and I was asked to join the conversation today because I have a pretty deep history working on industrial applications.
Okay, welcome. So let's get started now with our session, Tough Lighting for Tough Environments, Hazardous or Hazard Environment Lighting. All right, so as we go forward here, let's do our takeaways as we normally would do. So our first takeaway that we hope that you will remember as we leave today is harsh environment expenses are often underestimated, which can drive up cost and reduce margins. That is so true. That's one of the differentiating factors. It's really hard to make sure we include all things in a hazardous lighting because there's surprises and there's things that are different, which we will uncover. Number 2, understand harsh environments will ensure profitability and provide customer value. So understanding what we're going to be going over today is really important to being able to make sure that you're successful from a profitability standpoint and your customers successful. And number 3, RAB offers multiple products for both harsh and hazardous locations. So, and we'll cover those as well. So here we go. Going into a mechanical harsh environment. And so if you think about this, you can't get to it for servicing. So you see all of these things in this picture, all types of obstacles, things that prevent you from actually providing the service that you need to do. The light output needs to be increased in many applications, and we'll see why in just a few minutes, because there's multiple reasons. You just have to increase the overall lighting because you just can't, there's so many things that are in the way. And then the vertical obstructions make it really difficult. So it's not just the horizontal, it's like very cluttered, if you can call it that way, as far as the light, it's hard for the light to bend around a corner. And in fact, it's impossible, except if maybe it's reflected off of another surface. So that's really important. And then shadows are often present because of all these vertical obstacles and other things that are in the way. And so you got to be prepared to shut down operations. It could be anything, any kind of surprise. We'll talk about fluid motion here in just a few minutes, but for various reasons in a harsh environment, you got to be prepared to shut it down and be ready to do that. Also, because of this, you work slower. You just can't work at a normal pace in a hazardous location. It's almost impossible to do that. And then we have this non-uniform light. The dark, threatens the safety. And so you don't feel safe, and it's certainly because of all the shadows and all of this. And so more general lighting may be needed. You may not even be able to put a specific light close to where you're working for whatever reason. So you have to increase your general lighting to get the reflections to be able to increase and get where you need to go. That's very unusual and not common in general applications. So now let's talk about the fluid, harsh environments. And by fluid, we're really talking about motion here. So think about an automotive plant where the assembly line moves or other things move that cause this to be different. What about this? So paper mills, we need to get out of the way because here they come, right? So the safety is a big factor in those applications. So now let's move over to chemicals. So here's a story for you. So this contractor, and I'm going to call his name. He's a friend of mine in the lighting industry. His name is Roger Lane. So he told me about a personal story of his where he was working on a lighting retrofit job, and he got up the next day to put his shoes on, and he noticed that the soles of his shoes were disappearing. And they weren't what they were the day before because of working in that environment with all the chemicals. They were coming apart. And so special conduit coating is only, it lasts 2 years. That's another thing. You don't even think, you think about conduit, putting in it's going to last, 40, 50, 60 years. In a harsh environment, not the case. And so they're often worse than salt environments. And people say, there's nothing worse than salt. Yes, there are. And so chemical environments are like that. And then with these chemical environments, you don't have the good air filtration system. So if you're breathing something that's not good for you, then we know that's not good for us and our long-term health. And so we don't have enough air exchanges, possibly. That's really important from a design HVAC standpoint to account for this harsh chemical environment. So that's another one. And so speaking of this, in a chemical plant, if you have two separate monitors on the human body, that's what you have in this application, in this chemical plant. If either one of these goes off, either one of these monitors, you have to exit the plant immediately. So that's what they do to protect the people that are working in that environment. So let's now move to corrosion-resistant finishes. Now this is your friend. So what are you going to do with light fixtures in working in some of these environments? So RAB has what we call and introduced in 2017 corrosion-resistant finishes. Some of those include for like salt spray, which we just talked about, or maybe acetic acid salt, or maybe you go up and down in humidity, so it's cyclical, or maybe sulfur dioxide. So if you have this, first of all, this corrosion resistant finish mainly it works on metal fixtures, not on plastic fixtures, kind of as a general rule. So many of the fixtures at RAB can be adapted to this corrosion finish. Not all. So we'd like to ask you, if you have a situation like this where you need protection, check with our district sales manager or our rep, and we'll find out, if we don't already know, if this can be applied. It's a little cost adder. It certainly takes a little longer of a lead time, but it's available and it could be a lifesaver for your project. Now, here's an example. So chlorine, that's a chemical in the swimming pool area. So this particular floodlight is an FX300 with this finish was applied. And so this is the application that we have, lighting from the perimeter in Texas. So when we think about harsh lighting, it's not always chemicals or other types of harsh things. It also could be environmental lighting. So what about light trespass? Light trespass is like going beyond the perimeter and making it harsh, maybe for the neighbors or for spilling across that property line, or maybe lighting going up in the sky and lighting the sky and have a sky glow. Or perhaps the last one is glare. We've all been where this guy is, where you have these blazing headlights coming into your eyes, veiling, putting a veil over your eyes so you can't see. So this is also harsh lighting, and we at RAB have ways to mitigate that. So it's, again, falls into a little bit different type, but it is a form of, can be a form of harsh lighting. Here's a story that's very interesting. So Wendy's, everyone I'm sure knows Brother Dave and the Square Hamburger. And so there was a lighting ordinance in Cary, North Carolina. And the reason I know about this is I wrote it. So the town of Cary, very unusual situation. There was a bid, well, this was when I was a consultant, and there were two people that bid on this project. And the very unusual thing was that the team I was on did not get the bid, but the competitor reached over the fence and asked me to join their team and write the lighting ordinance. So I did. And so the ordinance was very environmental. They did not want very much light. So the challenge was to provide safety, but also keep it low. So what happened is that Wendy's wanted to come to town to Cary. And they said that they had 4 people that were killed on a company property in New York City. So they needed light. And so the town of Cary said, this is our lighting ordinance and you must comply. And Wendy's said to them, we said we will not be able to do that. We will not be coming to Cary. So that's what happened, because they were so used to utilizing light to help them to keep their properties safe. So I'm sure this is not the only instance like this. So if we have a situation where we are concerned and want to keep something low and we can't get into that area to light it, it's possible to light it from the inside. Look at the glow from this house coming into the yard. So it may be, if no fixtures are allowed in an area, maybe you have to go through a glass and provide harsh environment lighting through glass, as it's doing here, right here, or lighting from a perimeter. And I think we're going to talk about this later as an example. But the idea of, let's say you have a class 1 Div 2 location and you provide the lighting from the outside of that class 1 Div 2 hazardous location. How about lighting maintenance? We briefly mentioned that earlier. So how do you provide maintenance? You could have catwalks, and those, of course, permanent maintenance paths that you can provide the maintenance required, or could be portable. Or maybe in the area of a high bay application, you have a scissors lift here. And so how do you get to that fixture? So you get to it to make it easy for maintenance. Do you have it on a hook, cord, and plug, or do you have it on a pipe? So that's an idea, an example of, if you have a hazardous location, want to make it safe, you can be able to do certain things when you make the installation, make it easier. There's 4 musts for hazard lighting. And you can see this breakdown here of this photo of the airplane engine. So the first one is buy a good quality LED fixture. And it just so happens that RAB sells those. We also have 100,000 hour L70 life products to be able to sell, because you don't want, if you have a hazardous location or hazard lighting, you don't want to be going in there very often, right? And then the third bullet is a good warranty. And RAB has the best warranty in the industry, various types of warranty, depending on your budget, to provide you what you need. And the last thing is this. And let's click here to get this going. And so, let's see, there we go. Use task lights where necessary. And we'll talk a little bit more about this shortly. All right, so now let's move over to a steel mill. Some of you have never been in a steel mill. I have been in one. And so I can attest to what we're talking about here. So changes occur every second. 1 minute is one situation and the next is the next. And people get injured and get killed in these environments. And people actually, unfortunately, fall into molten steel. Very, very hazardous situation. That's an example of one hazard location. What about this? A motor and bearings factory. So the dust from the carbon carbon dust. It's terrible, just unbelievable, to the point that as a result of this, you have to wear special disposable clothing, and you have to clean the light fixtures every 180 days, no matter what source it is, LED or whatever. So it's just, you just have to keep things clean because of that dust. So this is some actual differences. So what is different? Let's kind of go into a little bit of a summary about these hazard environments. So number one, labor is a factor, and it's high. You are going to provide more labor than you estimate, unless you're used to doing this every single day and you know to take what you think and double it or whatever. It's really difficult because it's a high factor. The equipment rental is very, very common, used quite often. Also, count on a lot of unexpected hours. Things happen. And when they happen in the hazard environment, they're harder and they take longer to deal with. Obstructions of all types, whether they're temporary or permanent, are pretty normal, the normal situation. And then we talked about this fluid motion. Something's coming behind you, something coming from the side. At any moment, you have to stop what you're doing and allow for that to be safe. And then the light is blocked, and you expect it because this is what happens in this type of environment. So you either have to account for it with portable lighting, or you have to provide more general lighting to accommodate this. And safety concerns are everywhere. So things to remember. We want to maximize and make this as easy as possible by combining things. So for instance, if you take a look at this equipment, tie the fans for the paint booth in together with the lights. When the lights go on, the fans go on. Okay, so that's kind of make that automatic. And we want touch-free controls. Think about the environment. You really have to have it for motion, or for schedule, or maybe daylighting controls. It's going to be touch-free and it's going to be automatic. Okay, and then the task lights are your friends. In a hazard environment, they can be a lifesaver. Now, we talked a little bit about what the environments are like. Let's invite Ben on now to talk about some products and some solutions to this. Ben?
Now, one of the things that Bob has been mentioning, the word that he's been using and the word of the day from Colleen is this word called harsh. Now, harsh is different than a hazardous location. So here we have in front the different products that we can use or you can use in a harsh environment. What I'm going to start with are the products that we have that fit into the hazardous location category. We've actually been doing hazardous locations fixtures since 1957. We have our explosion-proof fixture that we developed there. In 2014, we came out with the HAZBAYLED. I'll be speaking about that shortly. The HAZBAY came out in 2016, and the HAZ FF-LED, our future flood, which is similar to, almost identical to the current FF-LED that we have that we sell in normal installations. But let's get into the definition of what hazardous location means. So hazardous location has a certain set of definitions. The first one has to do with the class. You will hear somebody referred to class 1, class 2, and maybe even potentially class 3. Class 1 has to do with whether we're talking about, or what we're talking about gases. Class 2 are dust, and class 3 are fibers. The next piece of the puzzle that people usually refer to is what's called the division. Now the division has just two pieces. It's is that hazardous material, whether that be that gas, whether that be that particle in the air or that fiber, is it normally present? So you have to design a product differently if you have open containers of gasoline, open containers of petroleum or whatever in that environment. If it's normally present, you have to build your fixture different than if the gas or the particle is not normally present. So division 2 is not normally present. Division 1 is normally present. And the last piece of the puzzle here has to do with the groups. So you have it categorized by explosion characteristics. So A, B, C, and D have to do with gases like acetylene, what are some of the hydrogen, I can't remember the other one, but then for C was not acetylene, it starts with an E. And then the D has to do with gasoline and propane and different gases like that. Now groups E, F, and G have to do with the different particles of dust. And what's interesting, one of our engineers at RAB previously had designed hazardous location fixtures. And he said, I would talk to him about hazardous location type stuff. And he says that in many applications, dust is actually more explosive or can have more explosive characteristics than gases do. We typically see these movies where a car blows up, gasoline. That's really not what would happen in the real life, but we like to see that drama on TV. Dusts are actually more flammable than gases in many situations. So here at RAB, all of our hazardous location products that are LED based are class 1. So that means gases, division 2, meaning not normally present, and A, B, C, and D, which are focused on just the gases, not the particles. So the first one that I have for you is a pretty easy one. We've been selling this one, like I said, since 2016. We call it our HAZBAY. The only thing that's different between this product and our current HAZBAY is it's painted gray. Actually, you can actually get the HAZBAY in white if you really want to. It has different gaskets inside to protect the components inside from the outside environment and vice versa. So just like the normal BAYLED that we have the bay lighter, which is in the 78 and 104, and we have an aisle lighter version on the right in 78 watts. So UL wet listed, 122 lumens per watt, universal voltage 122.77. I mentioned that you can get it in gray or white. With this, you can get it in the same color temperatures that you get with the BAYLED, which is 3000, 4000, and 5000 K. Just like the BAYLED, bi-level and 0 to 10 volt dimming is optional. Here we have a good example of the aisle lighter. The aisle lighter does a great job of illuminating vertical stuff. So if you're in a hazardous environment and you need good light all the way from the floor all the way up to the top of whatever you're illuminating, I realize the picture that we have is a warehouse, but if you have that hazardous, harsh environment and you need that good vertical illumination for a tall ceiling or tall mounting height, the aisle lighter version does a very, very good job. The bay lighter version is designed more to have the light go down to the horizontal surface, and so you're really getting the light and trying to push it down to the horizontal surface opposed to pushing it off to the sides to illuminate a vertical surface. The HAZ FFLED is available in the 26, the 39, and the 52. By the way, all of our hazardous location have the 5-year full warranty. They are all rated at 100,000 hours. So all 3 families that fit into the hazardous location have that full warranty and 100,000 hours. So in the FFLED, we have the 26 watt, the 39 watt, and the 52 watt. You can only get that one in gray, only 5000 K. So you don't have a choice of what color temperature you get with the floodlight. UL listed for wet locations. You would expect that because it's going into an outdoor environment, floodlighting application. Options that you have for the next 2 slides, I actually have some information about these 2 different options that we have here down below. So the first one that I have here is the NEMA beam distribution. So what I have going on here is the 52 watt, and what we're doing is we put this 52 watt on 15-foot pole. We angled it down 30 degrees from the horizon. We have the 7x6 on the left, the 5x5 in the middle, and the 4x4 on the right. Same wattage between the 3, but their distribution is different. Now, the 7x6, what that really means is this is a wide flood. So you have the widest horizontal, that's what the 7 is. You have the widest, or not quite the widest vertical. The widest vertical would be 7, but it's 6. So your vertical is 6 high. So this is would be considered a wide flood, 7 wide, 6 tall. The NEMA 5x5 would be like a standard flood. It's shining the light forward. It's also shining the light to the side. So it's kind of doing both at the same time. The NEMA 4x4 on the right, so you have a little bit tighter in the horizontal. You have a little bit tighter in the vertical, giving a more concentrated beam. And we can actually see that in the ISO foot candle lines. With that 7x6 on the right with a wide flood, we can see that the distribution is just really spread out, and that 4x4 is really taking that floodlight, creating a nice, good, hot spot because you're trying to illuminate something that is a certain distance away. So that's what we get when we choose the different beam distributions. Same pole, same mounting angle, same wattage, different distribution. The last option that I have for the floodlights is the swivel arm on the left and then the trunnion mount on the right that are available. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to ask Scott Teague. He is our sales guy. I'm going to unmute him and bring on his webcam, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about a grain storage and processing plant.
Yeah, thanks. The project that I want to talk about is Arden Mill Grains. The problem in this facility, in this grain facility, is number one, it was a 24-hour facility, so they were working at night. The floodlighting around the grain silos, the catwalks, and the supply lines were at end of life and had equipment in various states of disrepair. We had different fixture distributions on the floodlights. We were using a number of different legacy light sources, and believe it or not, it included a bunch of quartz halogen, which were not even a hazardous location fixtures. So we had lots of issues in this old facility. The exterior facility lighting was required to be Class 1 Div 2, so that was a QC requirement due to possible grain dust explosion. So we had to get the plant up to QC required lighting throughout and update to LED. So as Bob mentioned previously, this application had lots of vertical illumination obstacles. The facility supply lines, walkways, the catwalks, and the operating equipment created dark areas and resulted in uneven lighting all throughout the facility. We had lots of quality of light issues, the facility equipment blocking light everywhere. And did I mention, of course, that we didn't have any money to spend?
Of course, that's
So
always what happens, right?
That's always the issue. we had a very tight budget. So the solution was to replace all the existing floods with Class 1 Div 2 RAB HAZFF LEDs, which were very reasonably priced. But more importantly, we had 3 different distribution types to work with. So we were able to create much better evenness along the catwalks and illumination in the equipment areas with spots, floods, and wide flood products. The result, when we went from several different color temperatures in the old equipment to a single 5K LED, which really brightened up the facility, it made seeing at night excellent. We achieved a 60% decrease in energy, and were able to use utility rebates to fund a portion of the project. We met the budget and created a great lighting application for this job. So.
Excellent. Thank you for your input there, Scott. Appreciate it. Some other products that we have available to us beyond those 2 that we mentioned earlier happens to be this HAZBAYLED product. 26 watt, 42, 80 watt version of this guy, 2850 lumens all the way up to 8,800 lumens. It's only in gray, only 5,000 K. This guy is IP66, and you could have this in an ambient temperature up to 131 degrees F. Options just like the HAZBAY, the HAZBAY 0 to 10 volt dimming. This one we actually happen to have a 480 volt version of this guy. We have it in a stanchion mount. So inside the model number, you'll see an S. The P stands for pendant. The B stands for wall. And then if you see in the model number there, an X, that's how you get the ceiling mount version. With this also, you have a clear globe, you have a flat lens, you have a frosted globe or a frosted flat lens. Now, when you think of these different products, whether it's clear or whether it's frosted, you have to think about the design and how much light you need in the space. You're going to get more light out of a clear lens than you will out of a frosted. And obviously, if you do a frosted blue, red, green, or amber, which actually only come in the 80-watt version because that globe on the top steals a fair amount of light away from the unit. You have to concern yourself with how much light you need out of the base unit, because things like a wire cast or the die cast guard on the left will actually block a lot more light, and then the wire guard will be a little bit less. So if you do a wire guard, a die cast guard with a frosted domed lens, you're going to have to bump up your wattage compared to a clear flat with no die cast guard on the product. So you have to concern yourself. And when you go onto rablighting.com and you select your specific product, we have the photometric file for the product that has the die cast guard with the frosted lens on it. So you can actually do your lighting layout with the true realistic of what the product is going to deliver in a real life application. So there we have our three. The hazardous location one on the left, the high bay hazardous location in the middle, and the floodlight on the right. So I'm gonna have Scott, if you wouldn't mind, Scott, turning on your, I can't turn on your video, but I can unmute you. Why don't you turn on your video so we can see you and you can talk to this wastewater treatment plant. There we have Scott back again.
Yeah. So I was involved in a project at the Napa Sound Wastewater Treatment Facility, which is in Napa Valley, California. The problem with this is the existing legacy lamp fixtures along the walk ramps around the water treatment ponds were at end of life. So they had a lot of high maintenance issues, lamp replacement, ballast changeouts. The maintenance was creating seal problems in the fixture. So every time you would open that fixture up to change the light bulb or do a ballast changeout, the seals wouldn't reseal properly, so we had moisture ingress. The County of Napa was seeking to retrofit with new LED fixtures. So the fixtures needed to be Class 1 Div 2 because the location was susceptible to flammable gases and vapors in the air, which can be explosive. And did I mention the county didn't have much money to spend?
You didn't, but I could have guessed.
Well, the solution needed to be cost effective, and the county was looking for a sub 5-year payback for a retrofit project. So after considering the new RAB HAZBAYLED fixtures as the retrofit solution, we were able to show offset cost for labor and maintenance, along with the energy savings calculation that got us the desired payback. But the result is the most important. The result ultimately is that the quality of light moving from low pressure sodium to 4K LED, 4,000 color temperature, that was the big win. The ability to see in the dark areas of the walkway platforms at night was super enhanced by the project. And so they actually were able to have less people walking the catwalks at night because their security cameras were much better enhanced by the new lighting. So we achieved a 60% decrease in energy use. The utility paid for a portion of the project, and they were able to actually keep people out of the wastewater treatment area because of the better security camera. That was the result.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so moving on from the hazardous location type products. Let's see. Yes, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the LVAPOR product. So this is not a hazardous location fixture, but it is a very robust fixture that keeps the moisture out. 5-year warranty, 100,000 hours, 2 different versions of it, a 13-watt version and a 26-watt version with a variety of different light outputs. With this LVAPOR or the vapor proof, it's gray, UL wet listed, 3 different color temperatures. There's actually a low voltage version of this, a 12 to 24 volt. You can have a swivel photocell available. And what I really like in my 2 pictures that I have for you there is I'm actually showing off 8 different combinations of products that you could potentially buy with the LVAPOR. So you have the ceiling or the wall that's shown in my 2 pictures. You have up or down that's shown in my 2 pictures. And you could either have it with the guard and the lens on it or with no guard and lens. So in 2 pictures, 8 different combinations that the LVAPOR has. And you'll know that it is a RAB fixture if you actually look at the little, at the very bottom of the wire guard. If there's a little circle at the wire guard, you'll know that that is a RAB fixture. So here we have an example of the vapor-proof fixture used in this Praxair in Illinois, using a 13-watt LED product to accent their walkways and their different areas on this industrial facility. So what I'm going to do now, because we are talking about harsh environments and not just hazardous location stuff, I'm going to throw over to Bob, and he's going to talk a little bit more about some other products that we have.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So I know many of you use and sell and utilize washdown. All right, so with that, let's see if we can move forward once the mouse allows me to do that. And we have a product that's actually one of my all-time favorites. It's called the Shark, and many of you are familiar with the Shark. So we have a 2-foot, a 4-foot, and an 8-foot version. And it's funny to watch the evolution as this occurred. I was at RAB when the 8-foot was introduced and launched because of the request of you, our customers wanted this in 8-foot. So it's the 2-foot goes over and it's 18 watt or 25 watt. And then of course with the 4-foot, 36 and 50. And then the 8-foot is 70 and 100 watt. And you'll see that it's both DLC standard and some models are premium depending on the particular product. And it's universal voltage 120 through 277 and a 480 volt version, which is typical for many of these applications with a 5-year no compromise warranty. So the next thing I want to talk about that is incumbent here in the Shark is the NSF. So National Sanitary Foundation. This was actually started in 1944, a long time ago, and it's it's worldwide, and it includes a lot of things. But one of the things that it includes is food processing and food, and be able to have a wash down situation for this. And so an example would be meat packing. Certainly can apply perfectly in this type of facility where you have to be concerned. And so this National Foundation is all concerned about keeping us healthy, keeping us moving and alert, and doing all the things that to protect us in the environment. And so that's what this rating is. The next rating is the ABS, the Bureau of Shipping is what this is. And so this is what this is.
Hey Bob, Scott Teague was going to talk a little bit about the meatpacking plant.
Okay, so let's go back and let him do that. So,
yeah, let me. I just want to jump in and share an application project at the Cargill Meat Solutions facility, which is in Fresno, California. This was a unique one. This is a kill facility for beef and swine that had a lot of debris, bio-waste, and moisture. The general lighting was, of course, NSF, as you mentioned, rated high bays. So these fixtures were hose down rated. But because the facility had so much processing equipment, the aisleways and egress paths were really dimly lit in many areas. Again, to your point earlier about having a lot of vertical obstacles, whenever there was a power outage, what you would have is you'd have emergency fixtures come on, and as we all know, point sources can have lots of issues with shadows. So the problem was fire safety issues with medium illumination levels along the paths of egress. There were lots of emergency fixtures, but again, those point sources made the actual paths themselves left them pretty dark. So you end up with lots of shadowing along those paths. We needed more task lighting in this application to meet code. In this case, this was emergency pathway elimination. So the solution was to run a home run circuit along the paths of egress with an NSF rated low watt 4 and 8 foot linear vapor type fixture. Can you guess which one it was?
My favorite.
Yeah, it was the RAB Shark with emergency battery backup. Now the result was that we had a hose down rated emergency fixture, which met the demands of the environment while providing effective emergency lighting along the paths of egress throughout the facility. The hose down features of the product made it easy to keep the lighting fixtures clean while providing the needed illumination for emergency egress. So that was a win.
Okay, awesome. Anytime we can talk about the shark, that's great. So thank you, Scott. All right, so let's move forward and go back to where we were left off, and we did cover this one, and also the next one is going to be, see if I can, there we go. This is marine listing. So the marina type applications with boats and so forth, this is what this is, and that does have a rating. The next one is IP66. Most of you probably know and familiar with ingress protection. These numbers, the first one is dust, the second one is water. This is an IP66 rating for the shark. It's also a NEMA 4X classification, and it meets UL 94, and it's a 5 VA fixture. So just about any kind of a rating for environments, this is really suited for this, and that's why one of the reasons why I like it so much. Didn't mention Vandal Proof, or not Vandal Proof, we call it actually Vandal Resistant today, and because it's not really proof, but it's highly resistant to corrosion. It has a stainless steel latches, not plastic, and also impact resistant with this polycarbonate lens instead of acrylic, and then the housing also is polycarb. Getting into the details here, you see the heat fins there, which gives you excellent heat management all the way from the cold, minus 40 C, all the way up to plus 40 C. And the installation. So the tethers make it possible for one person to install the fixture if that's needed. So all of those are inherent in the shark. The mounting is, you see those two screws, which is the standard mount to the wall or the ceiling, is the way that works. But there are a lot of other mountings. So you can do a 45-degree angle, or you can do a V-hook, or directly to the J-box, or it could be a wall mount and of course these are, as we mentioned, vandal resistant. And so there's various types of mountings make it very, very flexible. And then you have this Tamper Proof Kit. So if you need this for certain types of environments, people want to mess with the fixture and so forth. So you have this Tamper Proof Kit that makes it even safer and more vandal resistant. And so the options with the shark. So you can, as Scott mentioned, you can get a battery backup with this. And also bi-level. So bi-level, you say, well, okay, I always have 100% and I want 100%, but you can also get 75, 50, or 25. You don't have to have 100. You could have 75 and 25. So it's two levels, which is, of course, bi-level, and the sensors. So the options there would be a microwave. This is perfect because you have this microwave behind the lens. You have water, you have washdown, so you need that sensor behind the lens for protection. And so that's our MVS sensor. And then, of course, it's equipped and readily available with White Cloud as well. So those are some of our options there with the shark. So I'm going to invite Ben back in. He's going to take us through the review of our takeaways. Ben?
Yeah, so thank you, Bob. Appreciate you covering those products. Our top takeaway that we had is harsh environment expenses are often underestimated, which can drive up costs and reduce margins. Takeaway number 2, understanding harsh environments will ensure profitability and provide customer value. And RAB offers multiple products for both harsh and hazardous location products. So that takes us to the end of our subject matter. You can go to other locations to get more information about what we're talking about. You can go to your sales rep, you can go to your RAB sales manager, you can go to Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter. We do have some videos available on YouTube also. RAB Drive, drive.rabweb.com is a great location to go to get PDFs of the marketing literature that we have. You can email that, you can snip little pieces out of it, send it to people. That RAB drive is available not only for Apple, but it's also available for Androids. Scott Teague, who gave us 3 different examples today. He's the purple guy on the top left. We have Matt there in yellow, Frank in red, Adam Ochoa in the maritime spaces or cities, and then we have Terry Crawley down there in the south. So we thank you for your participation, your attendance today. Thank you, and yeah. Bob.
Okay.
Colleen, hop back on.
Yeah.